The program continues with our first panel session. And the panel session obviously is focused on the title, Agility as a Key in Delivering Real Estate Services. For some of you who might just be joining us, and then if you've been on the program all the while, you know that we've gone digital. And so if you want to get details of each of our panelists, the bio of each of our panelists, you can find them on the website. So please kindly just avail yourself of that, and then you get REDA 2020 is always there. The kind of focus or highlight that I always do that, I'm very sure the men on this panel will not mind. So I'll first say, invite Carol Aribiyi, who is the Group Head Enterprise Project Management for Sterling Bank. Hello, Carol, how are you?
Oh, I'm fine, thank you. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm so excited to see you. As a matter of fact, we were saying off record earlier on that this is the second event that I am anchoring, that you have actually been not just a speaker, but an award recipient as well. That this itself is quite commendable. I mean, you are an agile practitioner and a change leader, and you've had a lot of background even in architectural technology, as well as the Scrum project owner and Prince 2 different project management qualification. And we're glad that with over 15 years experience, we are going to be looking and exploring that on today's panel. I want to also invite Mr. Bolaji Edu, who is the CEO of Bro Property Group, Bro Nigeria. He's one of the foremost experts in this industry. He's a man who has defined himself with so much in terms of deliverables and of course the outlook of his business. Being responsible for business strategy and transformation as well as development, we are going to be seeing exactly how we can expand that conversation in terms of best practices. It's good to see you again, Bolaji. How are you?
Yes, I'm very well, thank you. And it's good to see you.
Thank you so very much. And I'm looking forward to the engagement, as the case might be. Next in line is Mr. Laide Agbola, who is a transformational Nigerian entrepreneur. He's a man who is very passionate, and he communicates effectively with clear vision for the future is now. And certainly I always would agree with that point. But the future is not tomorrow, it's obviously now. He is the co-founder and the CEO of the Purple Group, and we're looking forward to a lot of those engagements. How are you, Laide?
Thanks. Thanks for having us.
Great. And then my very good friend, who is all the way here, a man who I've been speaking with all the time before this moment. There is no other person than the CEO of ABCK Tochukwu Architects Limited. Architecture, as a matter of fact, is one aspect of the real estate industry that we can never put in the light that is either seen as a second fiddle, not at all, because every single thing starts from the place of design, and I'm glad that you are here. How are you, Architect ABCK?
Fantastic. Thank you, Stephen. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much.
All right. So, gentlemen, we know that this session obviously looks at how the benefits of agility as a key strategic element, especially in managing processes, can help to, make a lot of real estate deliverables quite attainable. And then we know that things are changing. We are looking at the fact that we've been looking at one of the topics which I understand is what you call the new work ethics. Work is beginning to take a whole totally different shape. As a matter of fact, the corona pandemic, as a matter of fact, has created a scenario where people are beginning to question what exactly would be the future of work. Must we definitely be in a physical structure for us to be able to deliver? Or can we, as a matter of fact, leverage on an hybrid where we can be able to deal with both the physical presence as well as deal with the online presence and see how we can intertwine all of this in order for us to deliver at the end of the day. And these are some of the issues we're going to be deliberating here today. First and foremost, I would like to start with Carol, because I see she's the only woman that is on the panel, as a matter of fact. And then I'll ask you this, Carol. How exactly, as the fact that agility is agile is one of the practice that is somewhat new in our own climate, as a matter of fact. And how can embracing this agile mindset, this agility strategy, help turn around the real estate industry in Nigeria?
Okay, thank you for that question, Stephen. I'll first start with speaking about what exactly Agile is. So Agile is a set of values, of principles and practices that speak to how we engage and collaborate to get work done in a faster and more disruptive way, and also in an adaptive way. So it started with its foundations in things like Lean, Six Sigma, than the Toyota production system, which a lot of us are quite familiar with. That was the foundation of what we know as Agile today. But it has evolved into something else that, you know, can be used beyond the software development sphere into other spheres of domains and of business. So when you are speaking of Agile, you're speaking of things like there are four main values, which I will just quickly go over, which speaks to individuals and interactions, you know, above processes and tools. Or it talks about working software, you know, as a measure for success. It talks about being responsive and adaptive to change, you know, and also, you know, responding to change as opposed to following a plan as well. So those are sort of the principles that guide the way we interact when we're speaking of agility. And agility is, first of all, a mindset. It's not just about how exactly we get work done, but how we approach the way work is done, how we collaborate amongst ourselves to be nimble, to be active, and to be adaptive. I'll use an example of Amazon. So Amazon is, you know, there's no argument that it's one of the most profitable companies today. And, you know, the question is, why exactly is Amazon so profitable, and why is it seen as a disruptive company? And that is because of certain principles. It talks about, and those principles speak to customer obsession. They are, you know, customer focused in a very, you know, obsessive manner. An example is, you know, I heard that, you know, there's some suggestion that employees of Amazon will come up with, and Jeff Bezos will put it down because he says it's not customer focused, because it will bring pain to his customer. So, you know, that just speaks to how obsessed they are about meeting the needs of the customer. So that's the first point. Then they're a company that, you know, prioritizes experimentation. They are willing to learn, they are willing to experiment and continue to improve from there. Those are the principles and the bedrock of what agility is. And those are the things that, if embraced in the real estate sector, can make a huge difference in the way we run our businesses and the way our consumers are served. One of the thought leaders in agility, his name is Steve Denning, has brought up some principles which I would just like to share on this platform. The first one is about the law of the teams. And the law of the team speaks to saying that, you know, there is a flow of information. Work is done by a group of people that are cross-functional, that is collaborative, and they work and they deliver work in small batches and in small sprints, which are called iterations. So work is done collaboratively, and not, there's no, you know, one-man show or one-man riot squad or one-man performer. This is speaking about how we work together as teams to get work done within not just within the companies, the companies that provide services to real estate, but also along the entire value chain. One of the speakers yesterday spoke about, you know, gave an example about how, you know, he's worked collaboratively across, you know, the entire value chain with people from the business advisory section of real estate, such as Northcourt, and the developer section and the facility manager teams, all working together to focus and deliver a fantastic commercial real estate development. And, you know, the whole point starts from being data driven. How do you understand what your customer needs? How are you able to get that information from your customer? Agile speaks to being, you know, it also talks about the law of the customer, which says that we need to first understand what our customer needs and give them what they need. Give them what they need faster, give them what they need sooner. not just about doing business or producing property just because, you know, it makes sense to the bottom line, but kind of taking it from the customer's perspective. So now we understand that, you know, a lot has changed because of the coronavirus, and, you know, income brackets are shrinking for a lot of people, for individuals and companies. You know, as service providers in the real estate industry, we must first of all look to understand what our customer needs at this point in time, whether it's on the commercial real estate side or on the residential real estate side. So I've been working from home since March. And, you know, for someone like me, you know, I have needs like having constant electricity supply, constant data supply. You know, I needed to change the way my workspace was managed or within my home very quickly to be able to do the work from home effectively. So what are the kind of thought processes that suppliers in the value chain are thinking towards this kind of problem that I have as a consumer of this service? You know, that speaks to agility. We need to be able to identify the needs of the customer and quickly solve for those needs to be able to get the kind of benefits that we want to see. Another point is the law of the network, which speaks to having information flowing from top down and bottom up. So the concept of this is to say that, you know, as a business trying to understand what the customer needs, I must get information from everybody within the entire value chain. I must bring the person that is going to sell the property together with the person that would design, together with the person that would develop, and have everybody's views brought in together from the very inception, you know, so that the beauty of that solution is enhanced because I've taken in all the views and information flows both laterally and vertically within the organization. I believe that with doing all these various things, you know, it empowers the suppliers in the value chain of real estate to be able to make the kind of difference that is required. Thank you.
That's great. I mean, because your presentation has quite been very exhaustive, and I know how much in terms of the focus on customers actually been, and that was going to lead me to Bolaji's to Bolaji right now, because I would ask, how can agility in real estate be further described to real estate consumers? Because I know Caro is coming from a financial background. She's coming also from a project management agile background. But you are a practitioner in that part, in this industry, and then you are out there on the field. I mean, you deal with strategy, you deal with transformation, and the case might be. How can we further describe, you know, agility to the real estate consumers? Over to you, Mr. Idu.
Okay, so thank you very much for that. Yes, Roll is the property services company, which is headquartered in South Africa, which we've been in operation for almost about 50 years. And we've been in operation in Nigeria for about 15 years now. I think that the first thing to say in terms of agility as it relates to real estate is that it's more about sort of the flexibility of both the corporates and also the and also the staff in the company. So from whereby they can take leases from, or they can rent space from 1 month upwards, rather than the usual 3 or 5 year leases, and also that they can take space from hiring a desk to actually a full-blown office. So it's all about giving the corporate exactly what they need. And I think that this is a great way to provide the services that the corporates want. Also, in relation to agility, it is, as we've all seen, that we're all working from home at the moment. And this is not a new concept. The concept of flexible working has been something which has been growing for a number of years, and obviously the COVID-19 pandemic has accelerated it a little bit, or has accelerated it a lot. And people want the flexibility of being able to work from home or from other offices. And at the same time, when people are in the office, The people want to work more collaboratively. They want breakout space. They want spaces where they can work in private. They want spaces where they can work with others to sort of share ideas and collaborate. So it's looking at the design of offices, and it's also looking at the financial terms and the lease structure of offices as well.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Edu. It's interesting because I was going to do a follow-up to that. However, I think that question can best be addressed by architect ABCK, because two of the words that jumps out to me, or three that jumps out to me in your presentation, focus majorly on flexibility, collaboration, and design. And it's good to know that certainly the real estate industry is waking up to a lot of these different trends and innovation. And so in terms of the practice and in terms of infrastructural development, all of this has to be factored in. But then that leads me to architect Tochukwu, in terms of what are the best approaches to incorporate agile real estate designs and solutions, either as an owner or a developer, because I'm taking it from Mr. Bolaji's position. Would you want to throw more light to that, architect Tochukwu?
Okay, the best approach is sorry, hold on, please. Okay, fine. You're looking at it in order to talk about the best approaches. We're looking at it's important we go through the transition of the design spaces that we're used to working in from the onset. So you have the traditional design, which is basically specific spaces assigned to specific people. Here you have a fixed environment with very little peer-to-peer interaction. That is, you have the MD's office somewhere else, you design that space somewhere else, and you have the secretary somewhere else. So and all other workers in different portions of the building. So there is this, cut or chasm between pairs. Then you go on to the second type of design space that's always existed, which is also the project-based design. Here, this is specific spaces assigned to specific projects. So you have a more number of people interacting with each other, but there's still barrier walls between people. And finally, you have what is called the activity-based design, which is an unassigned network of spaces, providing choice. In this kind of mobile environment, you have more peer-to-peer interaction. And this is what agility talks about. This is what is called the agile advantage, and in trying to talk about that, I'm going to look at the approaches you're talking about as a designer. You're going to talk about the experiential approach, because today CRA or commercial real estate focuses on the experience-based approach as opposed to just the space design. So in the experiential approach, you're trying to create an experience for the users of that space as a designer or in real estate for their buildings. Here you're going to have enabled amenities, as yesterday's panel talked a lot about technology. Somebody talked about 3D printing and all that, but you'll find out that as for commercial real estate owners, you could have internet, you could have technology enabling that environment. You're talking about augmented virtual reality, that's AVR. You have Internet of Things, you have cloud access control, keyless controls, and all those kind of technology imbibed into that space. Usually, as architects, what we do is that from after or designers designing that space, an agile space, we usually do the stage one design, which is basically design drawings, to show the 3Ds and all. Then we move on to the stage two, which is also construction, called construction documentation, where you have a variety of the architect and allied consultants, structural engineers, service engineers, like the mechanical, electrical engineers. But here in this case, it's also important to invite that information technology personnel, specialist consultants, to come in and look at how can we best suit this environment with technology. Also, in that experiential approach, you're also looking at, as a designer, to be able to infuse certain lifestyle services, and amenity flows, where people, after using the informal attachments to that formal space where people can meet. There's more peer-to-peer interaction, you know, in that kind of setting. So you're looking to put in those amenity floors, amenity space, as the case may be, in your designs. Then again, there's also the flexible approach, you know, where design consideration for flexible spaces are put as priority. What are we talking about here? We are trying to achieve that open plan space, you know, in order to have that peer-to-peer interaction and great work environment. So we're looking at how flexible can we make it be. We're thinking of, are we going to use steel girders, you know, to span that open plan space? We're looking at, thank you.
That was quite expressive. Thank you so very much, Architect ABCK. Interesting enough, I think just like what Mr. Edu has actually mentioned, a lot of these thoughts are not necessarily novel in terms of we know that it has to do with packaging different solutions and responding to very, very, you know, timely issues. So it's so much of how much the customer must be at the center of everything that you do.
Yes.
And so if in terms of shared amenities, floors, in terms of your design, how are you going to incorporate that to ensure that at least the customer himself or herself finds out that the optimal benefit for them makes a whole lot of sense. At the same time, it is not going to be at a cutthroat budget. Because at the end of the day, whichever the case might be, we will still come down to the bottom line. How much of this will be for the customer, and how much of that is going to also be for the man who is investing in a lot of this structure, because it has to be quite beneficial for him or her. On that note, I would like to ask Mr. Laide Agbolam, you know, because you see, we are looking at this also from the customer's angle. Without the customer, we are not in business. But the customer himself will not provide the solutions that will definitely satisfy its own need. So for the person who is basically into the business, I mean, of development, a lot of this has to make a whole lot of financial sense for them. So, Laide, I'm going to ask you, what are the upsides to basically investing in commercial and residential real estate spaces with agile services? Because if agility as a mindset, as a tool, as a strategic approach to dealing with operations, with dealing with business and investment, is what every one of us ought to embrace, do you see it, you know, beneficial, especially when it comes to the aspect of real estate investment?
All right, thank you very much. First of all, I'd just like to reintroduce Purple. I'm CEO of Purple. Purple is an indigenous firm, and it's a real estate and lifestyle development company. Some of you that know us well will probably know us as Maryland Mall, which is Purple Maryland now, as rebranded, and our ongoing development, Purple Lekki, which is also a mixed-use development. For us, you know, agility in real estate has been something we've always imbibed and put into everything that we do. The customer obviously comes first, because without that, then there's no commerce in whatever we're doing. So I'd like to go back to 2016 when we opened the Maryland Mall, which is Purple Maryland now. If you look at that period, we were about the first. We were the first to come up with the neighborhood retail center concept that was largely a success from opening at about 70% occupancy. And with that is what we're going with the trend. At that time, a lot of the big developers or other development firms were going with the destination centers, the big massive destination centers, which obviously with the 2016 volatility in the FX markets and now in the current market has seen quite a bit of some challenges. I mean, we've all seen those challenges, but with us at Purple Maryland, we've seen some sort of sustainability and growth and improvement.
To look at within an
want to enter into a new market, want to explore a new invention, and they might just want to sort of take some short-term space to sort of see whether this new concept is going to work for them or not. And at the same time, offices, corporates may want the flexibility if they're working on a large project to be able to expand space for that project. And then once that project is finished, those investors that can offer both services to their clients, their customers, which is obviously their tenants, will be the ones that are most successful, both in the medium and also in the long term.
Well, certainly, we are on the same page with regards to the fact that the agile mindset of agile tool or agile as a strategy itself is obviously going to benefit the industry at large. I know that Carol is she's been in what you want to call her the prophetess of agility. In my own view, because she's actually been upfront, making a case. She's from the financial background. However, we are here with the real estate focus. There's no doubt of the fact that in terms of human resources, in terms of attracting the best staff you can actually get, obviously agility will definitely give you that kind of opportunity. I know that the COVID-19 pandemic that led to a lockdown, between the period of March, April, May, we started realizing that the economy was going down south, and that there's something had to come up in order for us to be able to put like a stopgap. Luckily or fortunately for the country, we were not badly hit by the pandemic, although the lockdown actually had created so much in terms of economic flow. And then yesterday, in reference to what I just mentioned earlier, one of the panelists that actually made a point, and she said that if we had had our processes right, because a lot of the resources, human capacity that we find in the real estate industry seems to be imported from abroad. So if we actually had all of our resources basically right here, as a matter of fact, perhaps at the time the economy is beginning to pick up, the lockdown is being eased, we should have been able to pick up fast enough. Because if you have to get a lot of these experts who have to fly in to the country to continue with the project, obviously the protocol in terms of coronavirus management protocols will certainly be adhered to, and there will obviously be processes. So there is a loss in time period. So in my own thought, Carol, you obviously will agree that if we're able to embrace that agility mindset within this industry, and of course the country at large, a lot in terms of the resources will not be a situation we'll find ourselves where we have to be importing the best from abroad. Meanwhile, it's obviously going to improve our productivity, it's going to improve our efficiency, and certainly that is going to mean more money in the banks for the investors and of course the stakeholders. You obviously align with this thought?
Yeah, absolutely, Stephen. Nigeria is blessed with a whole lot of resources, human resources, bright minds, innovators and thinkers. So as long as we can band it together, and look at how we can solve these problems that we see around ourselves using the agile mindset, and also using, some of the strategies that have been spoken about by the panelists here today, I think that will go a long way in the way we do our work and in the way we improve productivity, and also in the way we affect the bottom line. Because, at the end of the day, we can say all we want here, but, the point is this thing has to make money for us. And really, how does it do that when we, make our processes leaner and more effective and much more nimble? We talked about digitization, and that's a whole lot of, the presentation that was given today by LiveVend also speaks about how they've digitized the value chain. By the time you're able to do that, you reduce a whole lot of operational costs that you would have historically had to bear. And some of this is shared because you have a platform that brings everybody together to the table, and everybody can contribute their own portion and also reduce those operational costs that they would have borne as individual.
Hello, Carol. I think we just had a very non-agile happening stuff right now. Okay, you're back. Okay.
I was saying that definitely, I think this is definitely the way to go, because once we are able to reduce our operational costs and, across the entire value chain, that eventually means more value for the consumer, more value for the investor, more value for the stakeholders. So there's more uptake of our services and our products in the real estate value chain once we adopt that approach. Thank you.
Okay, that itself obviously will help practitioners or leaders in their own right, as Laide and of course Bolaji, who obviously are in the forefront. I know that architect Tochukwu, certainly you are also part of that value chain in terms of we know the designers. Tochukwu, would you with issue of budget and at the same time meeting with project timeline?
Yes, I would say that it's very cost effective in terms of budget, especially for a particular project. Why I would say this is what, and also in also setting up that office, your office space, or you're going to cut down costs totally, the running cost of your office, by trying to utilize it. It's just like surveys have been carried out, and they said that over 100 square feet 100 square feet of office space can be retained by transforming just one office space into a set of workstations. So it's very possible to cut costs with that. You're cutting costs also with materials used in the real estate. If you're trying to set up that kind of agile environment, you're cutting costs by using partition walls. What kind of materials are used for your barriers, and you could leave it as lean, as open as possible. You could have locations far away from your co-working agile space somewhere else. It's very, very possible for you to get that kind of clientele, option. And as Bolaji said, they're able to lease a particular office space for they're not staying there for like 10 years, they're not leasing for like 5 years, they're thinking about rentage, and they're able to use to rent for possibly months, weeks, daily, even hours. So it's in terms of cutting down costs. That's very important. The agile advantage is very important. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so very much, Tochukwu. I'm going to come to Laide as a matter of fact, because one of the things you mentioned in your earlier presentations, and please, ladies and gentlemen, in moderating this session, I'm also putting together questions that have been asked me, so that way each of the panelists is responding in order for us to maximize the time that we have, because we should be wrapping up this session any time from now. And then, Laide, one of the things that actually jumped to my mind when you made your presentation, of course, we knew about the fact that the forex volatility several years ago itself impacted the cash flow and finance and funds have actually been a major determinant, especially in real estate investment. However, we've seen this particular project, which has been very successful, which you actually explored the concept of neighborhood retail. As successful as that project is or was, as the case might be, depending on how you want to view it, there was a lot in terms of deliverables.
Thank you. I want to believe that that's probably one of the reasons why Thinkmint. I want to believe that it's for Popple. We've learned a lot of lessons from what we've done. We keep trying to push the barrier in terms of what is acceptable to the market and what the market requires, and that's a function of several months of research and discussions with various experts and knowledge base, as well as our tenants. If you look at Popple, for example, some of the lessons that we've learned is that we're creating an open plan area, which has over about 50 concession stands, similar to what you'll find in a debit forms from 3 to 15 square meters, which can be combined or self-isolated for each SMEs to be able to even play within this big retail space, which, as you well know, a lot of Nigerian small businesses, there are quite a lot of Nigerian small businesses that need to obviously be able to showcase their products, which the big centers don't allow them to, because one, they're Nigerian and they all want the international players to be there, and two, they probably cannot even afford those sizes, the 200, the 300 square meter sizes that the big destination centers cut. And the small SME spaces that we've provided in these concession stands are one of the very good places where those people. So it's about dancing to the market and looking at what the market requires and when the market requires, and giving to the market what the market deserves and wants. And that's why Purple is here. If you look at the way and manner in which we have conceptualized entertainment spaces, we've introduced something that has not been seen in retail spaces, which is the introduction of a swimming pool bar. We've introduced in open plan spaces without separating those spaces and allowing for intermingling, because at the end of the day, our tenants or our partners must always make revenues, and we've intermingled revenues from players within the entertainment space with the food guys, and also brought into the space Genesis Cinemas on the 6-screen cinemas backed up by Screen X, which is one of the topmost technologies in the cinema industry. So we're constantly developing and redeveloping, and we're partnering with people or with companies that have that level of ingenuity and agility, because it's not just about building in itself. It's also about the fact that the businesses that you align with and you work with and you partner with must also be agile in themselves and be responding to the market and based on what the market requires. Within the co-working space, if you see our success as Maryland, of course, with COVID, we've seen a downturn, but we've seen an upswing that is going on. Workstation has done an excellent job with our alliance at Maryland Mall. We're gradually coming back out of the woods and going back into the areas where we need to be in terms of occupancies. And what we are developing, and for is very important, is for SMEs, is also for the big players. One thing I have not seen, and I think we need to see, is the gravitation of the big companies, the headquarters of these big companies, to be decentralized. Because at the end of the day, this helps with their own expense line and props up their profit lines and removes a chunk of real estate off the books of these big institutions. And what they need to do is to look for those co-working private office spaces that are nearer to their work, to their staff. Their staff are happier because it's all part of agility. It's not just agility for the real estate owner. It's also the agility for the company in itself to be able to make sure that their staff are happy and they're producing and providing, and they are working in environments that allows them to intermingle with their other minds. Because it's not just about me working from home. It's also about me being able to rub minds with my colleagues when I want, how I need them. Because when Carol mentioned earlier, she mentioned the fact that sometimes I struggle with power, sometimes I struggle with my generator, sometimes I struggle with my fiber or my internet. In fact, my internet sometimes messes me up. But you need to work from places with fiber technology. So it goes beyond just technology. Technology is one area, but technology, the asset in itself, the counterparty client in itself, the user, which is the staff of that counterparty, is also a party to all of this agility environment that we're trying to build. And it's a multifunctional and multidimensional approach. And until we all imbibe it and look at it, and the big players need to start decentralizing. Imagine if you have a Stanbic Bank or a Standard Chartered or a GTB decentralizing its head offices, not just beyond branches, but sending those staff to pick up 2, 3, 5-man desk offices in co-working or private office spaces across Lagos, across the country. You can see the effect it will have within the real estate space in itself. All right. Being able to have a co-working space as far as Ikorodu, which doesn't exist currently. If you imagine what I'm trying to do, there's a lot of opportunities, there's a lot of room for alliances.
For all that. Okay, Laide, I'm going to. I know the crust and the substance of your position is actually well taken. It's important that we're also responding to these new innovations, because whether we like it or not, we were first humans before we became any other thing, before we became customers, before we became clients and all that. So those social angle of it has to be factored in design. And I guess that's what agility itself certainly wants to expand. But I'm going to ask Bolaji as a way of wrapping this session. It's a very key question because I mean you run a real estate firm that is proud to say that it has spun out revenue of over $2 million. There's somebody says and asks that there are ongoing projects in Lekki Access, and that the concern is basically with road accessibility and drainage. Is there anything ongoing that we need to be able to address with regards to this, or is basically the fact that perhaps the people who are creating a lot of this development in those axes have not embraced an agile mindset? Bolaji, over to you.
Okay, thank you very much for that. I think that there's two things to sort of consider here. The first thing to consider is that obviously the infrastructure is the infrastructure deficit. It does need to be addressed, and it's something that cannot be addressed solely by property developers or even by the private sector. It's something that needs to be addressed by the government, both at state and at federal level. I think that also the other thing to consider is that if we improve this agility and the flexibility, then what we see in other parts of the world is companies starting to operate on the hub and spoke model. So they may have their hub, which is their head office, which might be in VI or Ikoyi, but they may have spokes on the Lekki corridor, on the mainland, and elsewhere. And this helps to reduce the level of commute and also to reduce the traffic congestion that cities see. So if we have this agile working and flexible working, with offices being built where people live and closer to where people live, then I think that will take a huge pressure off the infrastructure, and will release space in the center of town, Lagos Island, Marina area, Ikoyi, and VI. So I think it has a lot of benefits, both in terms of the city and the environment that people live in, as well as having benefits for developers and property investors, and also for the corporates in the market. So it's a win-win for everyone, in my view.
All right, I want to say a big thank you. Apparently, you've done well for me, especially this panel, which I'm moderating for the first time in this conference. The other ones I've just been anchoring, as you guys would have observed. And you've done so well for me in terms of addressing a lot of this issue and question. But because we've basically run out of time, I want to say a big thank you to all of my panelists. To Mr. Bolaji Edu, thank you so very much for joining us. Carol Aribi, I hope I see you again in the usual agile frame for us. The winner.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure to be here.
Because I know that all of already, so I can imagine that obviously reflects design. We look forward to having you all again in the future, as the case might be. I want to say a big thank you. My name remains Stephen Ipadabo Lawson. The conference continues. We want to say thank you one more time on behalf of the organizers. So